which began on May the 15th and have now taken on a considerable sort of impetus because I think they felt a bit frustrated that sort of great enthusiasm for protest and to exhibit to the world their sort of dissatisfaction hasn't achieved much. So they've gone and turned the process into a global protest where I think we've seen more than 950 cities around the world, and many, many here in Spain have hosted very well-attended gatherings of protesters complaining about the mess, the economic mess that has been basically has been placed on top of them.
Harold, thank you for that. Harold Heckel there, who's in Madrid. And we're going to talk about the protests around the world because American journalist Beth Gardner is in our central London studio, along with Robert Leonardi, Italian politics professor at the London School of Economics. Beth, to you first. I mean, massive protests in Wall Street there, but the protests in America are spreading too, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. There have been protests in cities around the country. And, you know, I think that what's happened in New York has really tapped into a tremendous well of frustration that exists around the country, and that's been there sort of looking for an outlet for really, I would say, several years now. I think there's tremendous frustration with what's been happening economically and a sense that this is not just a temporary downturn, not just another recession, but that we're really seeing sort of decline of the economic power of the United States. And there's a feeling that the American dream is sort of slipping away and that the middle class is not able to get a foothold anymore. And as the protesters are talking about this idea that tremendous inequality, they talk about the 99% and the 1%, that there's a tremendous inequality and everything is going to the rich and not enough is going to the rest of the people. So I think that these protests have really touched on that and tapped into it, and that's why you're seeing them spread so quickly. And there's also, I think, another frustration, tremendous frustration with our politics and a feeling that, you know, at a time when we face these tremendous challenges as a country, that our politics has just gotten smaller and smaller and is unable to deal with what's happening, and that it's been very much controlled and influenced by a very small, very wealthy sort of set of corporate interests. So I think there's really been a strong sense of frustration around the country, and it's been looking for an outlet. And for some people, particularly those on the left and leaning towards the left, this has become that outlet, and I think that's why it's grown so quickly.
Interesting, isn't it? Two-pronged almost. Robert, what we've seen in Italy yesterday got violent, but certainly it's probably more three-pronged in Italy because the political situation, the leadership and that vote of no confidence and the economic situation fueling those protests there.
Yes, well, because in Italy there is the feeling that nothing is happening in terms of, on one hand, the politicians at the national level are concerned in remaining in office, but very little is being done to tackle the social issues, the economic problems, the financial chaos that reigns in the country. And on the other hand, time is going by and nothing is being done. And so therefore there's this tremendous sense of frustration. Now, we've had also an expression of anomie in terms of some believe that there is no solution, and therefore the best thing to do is to smash the state.
One of the things I'm interested in, Robert, is the organisation of these protests, because they are the coming together, as Beth was saying, of different groups with perhaps different interests, but they're finding common ground.
Well, they're finding common ground on the streets, but they're not necessarily finding common ground in terms of proposing solutions. And I think that the day after the protests, one is the people in Rome are asking themselves, well, what's the solution? What should take place? And therefore, there is this sense of we need to find a solution. We need to find a unified stance vis-a-vis the government so that the politicians at the national level who may not be concerned with finding a job or where the next meal is coming from will take notice.
Beth, following on from that, I mean, what are the politicians in America saying? I mean, is it directly directed at President Obama, his administration, or is it across the board? Is there a response to these protests from the political world?
You know, as we've been saying, I think there are a lot of different things going on in these protests, and the different protesters are sending different messages. You have some pro-Obama signs next to anti-Obama signs. As far as how the politicians are taking it, you know, I think the Democrats would like to sort of find a way to ride this movement and have it strengthen them. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that develops and what the interplay is. I think President Obama at the moment is, you know, staying fairly quiet. He's waiting to see what happens. The Republicans, I think, already are sort of trying to diminish and marginalize the protests. They're calling them, you know, sort of extremist and class warfare, and complaining that they don't have a specific policy agenda. I think what's going to be really interesting to happen, what's going to be really interesting to watch, is to see how this plays out and what happens next. You know, street protests are a very, very powerful tool, or they can be, but if they want to have a political impact, we're going to have to wait and see where they go next. Are they going to be able to start organizing politically and become sort of a counterweight on the left to what the Tea Party has been on the right? The Tea Party, as we've seen the last few years, has really had a tremendous influence on the direction and the policies of the Republican Party, and now specifically on the Republican candidates for president. Is this Occupy Wall Street movement going to be able to do something similar? I think they would like to, you know, and have an impact on the Democratic Party, on the president, and on his proposals between now and next year, and on his sort of platform as he runs for re-election next year. It's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to take some time. We're going to have to wait and see how this plays out in terms of the impact on politics. But if there is an impact on you know, the president and the Democratic Party, I think that would obviously be the biggest legacy that this protest movement could leave, the biggest that it could hope for.
Interesting. Beth, thank you very much. Beth Gardner and also Robert Leonardi. Thank you both for joining us today. Well, don't forget to let us know what you think about that, about any of the stories we are covering today. You can email us at sky.com, or you can text us. 84501 is our text number, and you can follow us on Twitter as well. Follow the stories that we are following. It is at Sky News. And only on Sky News for iPad, the story so far of the trial of Vincent Tabak, who is accused of murdering Joanna Yates. Sky customers can log onto the app for free using their Sky ID. On our website right now, Sky News